I never imagined that a black maid could unlock my son's joy when I had it all. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sounds of laughter used to fill our home, simple, beautiful echoes of happiness, but now. Silence. A deep, heavy silence. My son, Oliver, sat in the corner of his room, eyes glazed over with a stillness that chilled my heart. I could see the weight of the world sitting on his small shoulders, and it broke me. I had everything: money, status, a grand house, but not a single ounce of joy in my son. He hadn't spoken much since the accident. The one that took away his best friend. I tried everything: toys, trips, even therapists. Nothing reached him. His laughter had vanished, and in its place was a haunting emptiness. My efforts felt as useless as trying to catch smoke with bare hands. I even hired a specialist, someone with an impressive resume, but it was as though they were trying to peel away layers of an onion, painful and revealing but ultimately possessing no sweetness. Then, she came. The new maid, Victoria. She walked in, carrying the scent of jasmine and something deeper, something almost ancient. The moment she stepped into our home, I felt an inexplicable shift. Her smile was wide, warm, friendly. But it was the way she moved that caught my attention. She danced among the rooms, lightly touching the surfaces, humming softly like a forgotten song. I couldn't help but watch, heart racing as if I was missing the crescendo of a beautiful symphony. Days passed, and I noticed Oliver watching her from afar. Not like before, with dull eyes, but with a flicker of curiosity, perhaps even interest. He hadn't played with anyone, not even Ma, but Victoria. She drew him in. Her laughter rang through the hallways, a melody that seeped into every crack and crevice of the house. It was a foreign sound, one I hadn't heard in what felt like an eternity. I watched, heart pounding, as she interacted with my son, gentle, patient. It was as if a door opened within him, a doorway to a world I lost sight of. They created games, filled the house with their infectious giggles. It was alarming, almost unnatural, and yet there was something undeniably magnetic about it. One evening, I walked by Oliver's room and heard snippets of conversation. Victoria was reading to him a story about adventure, of youthful dreams and possibilities. I stood frozen, my hand trembling on the doorframe. Tears prickled in my eyes. Would the shadows finally lift? But then, just as quickly as the hope surged, a wave of dread washed over me. Why was this woman making my son happy when I could not? What secrets did she hold? I couldn't shake the unease that crawled under my skin. I felt as if something extraordinary was unfolding right before me, something I couldn't grasp or understand. Who was Victoria really? What power did she possess that brought laughter back to my son's eyes? The tension coiled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. As I watched them, a lump formed in my throat. I was terrified by this sudden shift. Was it genuine? Or was I watching a mere illusion? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The following week felt like a blur of emotions, unstable and overwhelming. Each morning, I watched Victoria weave her magic around Oliver with a mix of fascination and dread. Their laughter danced through the air, teasing my senses, but my heart remained heavy with uncertainty. It was beautiful and tragic. The joy she brought him was a stark reminder of my own shortcomings. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry in the sunlit kitchen, I overheard Oliver asking Victoria about her past. The kitchen, once a sanctuary for me, felt like a prison of shadows. I strained to listen to their conversation, my heart thumping. "How did you learn to dance?" Oliver asked, his voice tinged with genuine curiosity. Victoria paused, and I could almost see the memories flicker behind her eyes. Oh, my dear, it was back in my village. We danced to celebrate life, to let our spirits fly free amidst the hardships we faced. We did it together, as a community. Her voice was rich with emotion, pulling at the frayed edges of my heart. You see, joy isn't just in the laughter, it's in connection and sharing your story with others. Oliver's laughter rang out, innocent and bright. I was engulfed by an emotion I couldn't name, something akin to longing but laced with bitterness. I wanted so desperately to crack open the wall I built around my heart and reach for that connection. But with each moment that Oliver spent with Victoria, I felt more like a ghost in my own home, lurking on the periphery. I became a watcher in my life, barely participating while witnessing the miracle I once had. My thoughts spiraled. What was I even doing wrong? What walls had I built around myself, and how had I lost sight of my son? That evening, I decided to take a leap of faith. I joined them for dinner. As I entered the dining room, the atmosphere shimmered with warmth, but it felt foreign to me. Victoria had prepared a bright, colorful spread, the tantalizing smells mingling in the air. When I stepped into my son's laughter, it was like being thrust into another realm. Mom. Oliver beamed, his eyes sparkling. Victoria is teaching me how to cook. Can we make something together? I fought the instinct to feel threatened. Of course, sweetheart. What do you have in mind? His excitement bubbled over as he suggested a recipe filled with ingredients I wouldn't usually dare to work with. I glanced at Victoria, searching for signs of competition. Instead, I found a gentle, encouraging smile on her face. Let's create something special together, shall we? As we chopped vegetables and stirred pots, I felt a twinge of hope ignite. Maybe I could bridge the gap. Maybe I could learn to speak his language again, reconnect with the threads of his soul that I had neglected. But just as the warmth in the room filled me, the sudden chill of tension surged back when Victoria shared a story about her childhood, something she never discussed to the length I had hoped. Things were different for me, you know. I've seen struggles that shaped who I am. Loss, pain, love, and the laughter that sometimes felt inexplicable. Her voice dropped, reverent as she continued. But that's the beauty of life, isn't it? Finding joy in the cracks. The walls closed in around me again. It dawned on me that perhaps Victoria understood grief in ways that resonated deeper than my own experiences. One part of me wanted to scream, to push her away. Who was this woman that could share intimacy with my son? But another part whispered, urging me to embrace the woman who wanted only to fill our home with light. Later that night, I could barely sleep. My mind raced, riddled with thoughts of my son and this strange woman who existed in our lives. In a sleep-deprived haze, I mulled over Oliver's recent words. His laughter, his budding spirit, seemed inexplicably linked to her vibrant presence. But just as I was drowning in contemplation, a loud crash shattered the stillness of the night. I bolted upright, heart racing as I crept down the hallway, anxiety gnawing at my insides. The light from the living room flickered ominously, illuminating a dark shape crouched near the window. I pressed against the wall, breath catching in my throat. I recognized the silhouette, and the truth hit me like a fist. Victoria wasn't just a maid, she was something more, a haunt from a past, a thread woven throughout my life but kept hidden from view. What had I brought into my home? What secrets did she carry? That night, the darkness shifted around me, wrapping my heart in a web of uncertainty. Little did I know that the next day would bring a revelation that would shatter everything I believed I knew about joy, loss, and the woman who had stirred something remarkable within my son. The dawn broke with muted light, casting an unsteady glow over my room. I hadn't slept well, haunted by the vision of Victoria's shadow lurking near the window and the implications that came with it. My heart trembled with dread as I recalled the small moments where her laughter melded with Oliver's, creating a melody that echoed the joy I once provided. When I stepped into the kitchen, I found Oliver sitting at the table with a slice of toast, his eyes alight with excitement. "Mom, guess what?" he squealed, the remnants of sleep still clinging to him. "Victoria and I are going to the market today. She says they have the best fruit in the whole world. My heart sank, a familiar ache twisted within me. That sounds fun, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile. The knot in my stomach tightened as I watched his enthusiasm. This was supposed to be my role. I was the one who should have been taking him to the market, imparting knowledge about fresh produce, sharing the thrill of picking the best and sweetest fruits, but as I turned to pour a cup of coffee, Oliver shared more about their plans. Victoria said I can pick anything I want. She believes in trying lots of different things. His eyes sparkled with pure bliss, and for a moment, I was lost in the sweetness of his childlike wonder. Yet the sense of loss was suffocating. I had stopped believing in lots of different things long ago. After they left, the house felt achingly empty. The walls closed in even tighter, amplifying my isolation. I sank onto the couch and stared at the sunlight filtering in through the window, illuminating every dust particle that danced in the air. I felt suffocated by the simplicity of it all. Why was it so hard to feel joy now? Hours later, Oliver returned. His cheeks were flushed and his smile wider than I'd ever seen. I jumped off the couch, eager for a glimpse of the day he had experienced. Mom! Look at the fruits we got! He exclaimed, showcasing a rainbow of exotic colors. Victoria hovered nearby, holding bags filled with produce, an easy smile on her face like she belonged in this chapter of our lives. Sweetheart, what did you pick? I asked, my heart racing with curiosity and maybe a touch of jealousy. This one. And this one, he chirped, pointing at a strange spiky fruit I'd never seen before. Victoria says it's called durian. She said it smells funny but tastes amazing. And we got these, limes. Just wait until you see what we're going to make, then Victoria chimed in, we're going to prepare a dish full of different flavors and colors, just like the fruits we bought. And suddenly, I felt left out of my own life, experiencing a strange mix of envy and admiration for the connection between them. It's the kind of meal that reflects our unique stories, she added, as if she had read my mind, yet in the middle of this tropical cornucopia, an uneasy thought simmered beneath the surface. Who was she to Oliver? What had she done to earn his laughter, his trust? Anger bubbled within, making me question if I was ready to share my son's joy or if I wanted to reclaim it for myself. Later that evening, as the aroma of their cooking wafted through the house, my resolve cracked. I needed to confront Victoria, to understand the depths of her past that intertwined with ours. I found the two of them in the kitchen, engrossed in their culinary dance. Victoria, I finally said, forcing steadiness into my voice. Can we talk? She raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension as she turned to face me. Of course. I motioned for her to follow me outside, away from Oliver's innocent gaze. I need to understand. My voice faltered slightly, but I pushed on. You've become an essential part of his world. I want to know how you got here. Who are you? Victoria's expression shifted, something flickered in her eyes. I've not hidden my past, but I suppose I've not shared it deeply with anyone. I just wanted to bring light where it was needed. And what about me? I pressed, feeling the walls pushing in again, but this time laced with a sense of betrayal. Do you think I can't do that? Do you think I need you? I think you've built walls around your heart, she replied, her voice steady yet gentle. You've lost so much, and, yes, perhaps you've lost touch with joy. But healing takes time. I'm not here to replace you. I want to help you both find it again. That a bitter smile crept over my lips, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. You might know how to connect with him, but can you see what you're undermining? He might choose you. As she opened her mouth to respond, the silence shattered by the sound of Oliver bursting through the door, his excited laughter echoing. Mom! Victoria! You have to see this. I turned towards the sound, my heart pounding. I knew then that I was about to learn something monumental, something that would change everything. Just as Oliver emerged, a familiar face stepped out from behind him, a ghost from my pasta face I hadn't seen in years, a face I thought I would never see again. Surprise! He exclaimed, breaking into a grin that mirrored my son's, leaving me breathless and entirely unprepared for the world of chaos about to unfold. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the yard as my heart raced violently against my ribs. Oliver's joyful voice faded into the background as I blinked at the man standing before me. It was as if time had bent itself to bring back every buried fragment of my life, a rush of memories flooding my mind, most of them tangled with bitterness and grief. Eli. I whispered, the name escaping my lips with a tremor laced in uncertainty. Hey there, it's been a while. He offered a tentative smile, reminiscent of a world before heartbreak and separation consumed us. In that moment, the past felt like thorns entwined around my heart. I hadn't expected to see him here, standing in the flesh after all these years of silence. He crouched to meet Oliver's wide-eyed wonder, ruffling his hair with a familiar enthusiasm that ripped at the tender seams of my heart. "Who's this little champ?" he asked, his tone playful, infused with warmth. "This is my son, Oliver." My voice shook slightly, torn between the anger of the life had left behind and the undeniable joy of seeing him again. Oliver, eagerly unmoved by the tension swirling around us, responded, "I picked out all this great fruit. Do you want to help us make dinner?" A gentle smile broke Eli's surprised facade, and for a moment, my resolve wavered. I was reminded of the laughter we once shared, of dreams exchanged over late-night conversations. But those memories quickly transformed into jagged specters. I forced my gaze away from Oliver's innocent charm and grasped for composure, struggling against the flood of old emotions surfacing. "Eli," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper, "why are you here? After all this time?" "I was in town and heard about the accident," he said, carefully choosing his words. "I wanted to check in on you to see if you were okay." "Okay?" I laughed sharply, incredulity pouring from me. "Do I look okay to you?" Victoria remained in the background, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity as she exchanged glances between Eli and me, clearly sensing the weight of the conversation. "Look, I know I don't have the right to just show up like this," he continued. "But I thought maybe it's a good time to reconnect, to talk things through. 1,000 words lodged in my throat, but none felt proper, none carried the punch I wanted them to. Instead, tension coiled tighter, suffocating the air between us. Oliver didn't grasp the enormity of this sudden revelation, bouncing on his heels, filled with a child's unflinching hope. "Come on, Eli. Help us pick out the ingredients. We can make something delicious." He nudged Eli playfully, blissfully unaware of the emotional whirlwind around him. Eli chuckled softly, that same spark of connection lighting his features. "Sure, buddy, lead the way. What did you have in mind?" As they turned to enter the house, something in me twisted painfully. This felt surreal, inviting Eli into our home, letting him share in our lives again. Old wounds threatened to surface at the notion that he could slip back in, imperceptibly woven into our family fabric once more, and I wrestled with whether it was a blessing or a curse. A flicker of hope gleamed in Oliver's eyes as he shared stories of his day, but jealousy wrapped itself tighter around my heart. I watched the easy way Eli bantered with my son, the way he seemed to naturally fit within the invisible cracks of our lives. There was no denying that Oliver was enthralled, utterly captivated by the idea of reconnecting with this figure from my past. As the meal took shape, I busied myself with the cooking, partly to hide my internal turmoil. I watched as Victoria took a step back, allowing Eli the space to breathe near Oliver. Her intent gaze spoke volumes, an understanding of my struggles intertwined with a tinge of possessiveness over my son. When we finally gathered to share the meal, the air was thick with an unspoken tension, a strange blend of nostalgia and uncertainty. Laughter rang through the kitchen, but my heart felt like it might shatter with each passing moment as I navigated bittersweet emotions. "Mom, this is so great!" Oliver exclaimed, his face a picture of happiness. "Can we have dinner like this every day?" I nodded, forcing a smile, but the warmth in the room felt too fragile, a facade barely holding against the weight of my conflicting emotions. A distant storm brewed in my heart, at odds with the tender moments unfolding before me, and then, as we finished our meal, Eli turned to me, sincerity lining his features. "I never wanted to leave to make you feel alone. I should have fought harder." The room fell silent. His words hung heavily, a reminder of loss and heartache. I searched his eyes for signs of the boy I had fallen in love with, but time had changed him much like it had changed me. Before I could respond, Oliver chimed in, breaking the charged silence. "Mom. I have an idea. Let's make a family photo. All of us." In that instant, the air shifted, and time held its breath. My heart tore at the thought of including Eli in this moment, of capturing a snapshot of a life that once was, now distorted and filled with complexity. It was an innocent suggestion that felt laden with potential disasters, a potential I wasn't sure I wanted to entertain. As he rushed for the camera, I glanced at Victoria, her eyes filled with questions and sympathy, all while Ellis' gaze locked onto mine. "What do you think?" he asked, his tone feigning nonchalance yet reinforcing the gravity of the moment. That I opened my mouth, desperate for an answer, but it came out in a whisper. I don't know." Just then, Oliver returned with the camera, bright ray of hope amidst the swirling chaos, unaware of the fractured world around him. My mind raced with implications, secrets hidden beneath the surface, emotions that had long been buried, and as we all gathered together, an unlikely assembly of intertwined lives, I felt the weight of uncertainty crashing down. I clutched the camera tightly in my hands as the click of the shutter drew closer, oblivious to how drastically this moment could alter our lives forever, unaware of how history might repeat itself as alliances shifted and truths threatened to unravel in the quiet aftermath. In a single breath, everything felt achingly fragile. The days following the unexpected dinner with Eli dragged on, each one a delicate dance of caution and trepidation. I poured every ounce of love into Oliver, desperately trying to balance the joy of his laughter with the heavy weight of my own emotions. The fragile semblance of routine we had constructed was thrown into disarray by the mere presence of the man I once loved and lost. Oliver was enamored with the idea of a family photo, gazing excitedly at the framed memories of my past with a mix of reverence and disbelief. Each day after school, he would pester me about the picture, eagerly waiting for Ella's return, while I grappled with a knot in my stomach. It was a gray morning when Eli made his way back into our lives, just as the rain fell in gentle torrents outside. His presence seemed to command the room, evoking a flurry of emotions in me. Oliver, of course, was thrilled, rushing to the door as if Eli were a long-lost hero returning from an adventure. "Mom! Look who's here!" The sound of Oliver's voice was almost disarming, igniting something deep within me, a longing for the past but also a fierce protectiveness for what I had now. I plastered on a smile, though I could feel the uneasiness steeping into my bones. "Hey, Eli," I greeted, attempting to keep my voice steady. "Thanks for having me again," he said, his sincerity palpable even through the lingering tension that hung between us. I busied myself in the kitchen, conjuring comfort food from my childhood, warm, savory, a meal I hoped would bridge the gap between the three of us. As I chopped veggies, my mind wrestled with thoughts. This was not just about Eli and me anymore, it was about Oliver, the innocent thread binding us in this complicated tapestry. "Did you bring the camera?" Oliver asked, eyes alight with excitement as he bounced in place. "I did," Eli replied, his smile causing an echo of nostalgia to ripple through me, reminding me of simpler times. "Do you have the perfect spot in mind? There's this tree in the backyard. It has the best leaves for jumping in." Oliver's enthusiasm shimmered like sunlight breaking through clouds, a glimmer of hope against my darkening thoughts. "All right, let's go for it then," Eli said, kneeling to Oliver's height, and I felt my heart twist again. Against my better judgment, I found myself stepping outside to prepare my heart for whatever was about to unfold. Watching Eli with Oliver was both a balm and a wound, an ache I couldn't quite articulate. Once they changed into matching rain boots, the trio of mismatched emotions surfaced, profoundly innocence, hope, fear flooding me as I tried to keep my distance while still being present. The bright laughter as they jumped in puddles reverberated through the dank air, a reminder of fleeting joy in an otherwise heavy heart. They fussed and played, capturing shots in a burst of giggles, and I stood at the edge with the faintest smile stitched to my face as I witnessed moments I feared I might never share again. In those small captures, I saw them, Eli as the carefree man I once loved and Oliver the embodiment of endless possibility and innocence. When the rain finally lessened into a soft drizzle, they called me over. "Come join us," Oliver pleaded, his jade eyes sparkling with mischief. I hesitated, memories whispering warnings as Eli grinned at me, an unspoken promise lingering in the air. Those embers of our shared past flickered to life. "Just one more picture," Eli urged. "I can't capture this moment without you." With a tentative step, I joined them, the weight of my hesitation hanging thick in the air. The camera clicked, capturing our smiles that were barely real but felt too bright to ignore. And for a fleeting second, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, a version of happiness could exist here. Once the laughter settled, the reality of my heart's conflict pulled at me again. As we walked back to the house, wet shoes squelching against the faded porch, I caught sight of something in Ellis' expression, a flicker of guilt, perhaps, or yearning. "I'm sorry to intrude like this," he admitted softly, glancing at me. "I never meant to disrupt your life." Disrupt? His presence had uprooted everything I held dear, digging up wounds I had barely begun to mend. It's complicated," I finally managed, the words coming out like shards that I in that moment, as Oliver excitedly recounted his aspirations for the next family outing, I felt the ground beneath me shift ominously. I could hardly pay attention to my son's joy as my world began to tilt again. What if we weren't just documenting the present, but uncovering the past instead? I could feel storms brewing again beneath the surface, promises of joy recklessly swirling with the honesty of what I had lost. And then, to my utter disbelief, as we began to leave the porch, Oliver glanced back at Eli and asked the question that would forever echo within me, shattering the already fragile facade I struggled to maintain. "Eli, do you think we could be a family again?" Time paused, and I felt the air thicken around us. My heart seized with anxiety, and before I could respond, Ellis' gaze fell heavily, and a deep, unresolved yearning clouded his features. A single moment, a single question, locked us all in a depth I wasn't sure we could handle. The truth lingered just beyond the horizon, waiting for us, unseen but palpable, like the rain that had just passed, a promise of renewal but a threat of torrents to come. The days unfolded like a fragile paper crane, beautifully crafted yet so easily torn apart. Each interaction with Eli was layered with complexities, as if we were maneuvering through a labyrinth where every misturn could shatter the delicate equilibrium I had fought so hard to establish. I found myself waking in the dark hours, thoughts circling like moths around a flame, desperately yearning for clarity but finding only confusion. After Oliver's heart-stopping question, silence lingered in the air like a heavy mist. Eli shifted uncomfortably, the weight of the moment pressing down on both of us. I watched as Oliver's innocent faith flickered, the spark of hope he had ignited now seemingly overshadowed by the enormity of his parents' turbulent past. Could we really navigate our way back to being a family? That night, after I tucked Oliver into bed, I sat on my own bed, feeling the echo of his question reverberate within me. I thought of the laughter that had filled our home when it was whole, and the gnawing despair that followed Eli's departure. Why did it feel like inviting a storm into our lives all over again? I buried my face in my hands, feeling the familiar sting of tears. With each passing day, Ellis' visits took on a routine rhythm. We cooked together, shared snippets of our days, and Oliver filled the gaps between us with laughter and light. For every joy that threaded through our evenings, there loomed the darker shadows of uncertainty. I would catch Eli looking at me from across the kitchen island, a glimmer of the man I used to know, mixed with apprehension as if asking, "Will you lean into this?" One afternoon, after a particularly laughter-filled bout of charades, Eli brushed past the barrier I had intentionally erected. "Can we talk?" he asked, a seriousness settling over his playful demeanor. My heart dropped, sensing that whatever was coming could change the fragile dynamics we had begun to establish. "Of course," I replied, bracing myself for the unknown. In the dim light of the living room, Eli sank into the sofa, his gaze cast down. "I've been thinking about what Oliver asked. About being a family. I wanted to talk to you about us." A wave of panic washed over me. The us he mentioned felt like an uncharted territory filled with complications only we could understand. Eli, I started, my voice trembling, that's a big ask. Don't you think we should take things slowly? I don't want to rush anything, he said quickly, his eyes meeting mine with a fervent intensity. But I can't help but imagine what it might look like if we tried. Being a family doesn't have to be a straight pat hit, can be anything we want it to be. What we had, what we lost, it wasn't just erased, I murmured, remembering how love had felt so incandescent and alive. The weight of his absence had forged a new reality within me that was both fragile and necessary. Just then, the sound of Oliver's footsteps pattered down the hallway and halted our conversation. He peeked around the corner, finding his two favorite people amidst the turbulence that filled the room. What are you guys talking about? Just grown-up stuff, I replied, my voice faltering a bit at the innocence of his inquiry. Can we play superheroes? He asked, bouncing on his toes. His joy was infectious. Eli looked at me, a silent exchange of what-ifs hanging between us, but then the moment shifted as I saw Oliver's excited smile. How could anything feel more important than this sweet child full of hope, sure? I called out, and the heaviness of the previous conversation floated away like a fallen leaf on a crisp autumn day. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the laughter of Oliver and Eli echoed in my mind, yet I felt a nagging discomfort in my heart. I turned to my phone and opened the screen to reveal a weathered photo of Eli from our pasta time before life twisted our intertwined fates apart. I hesitated but then typed him a short message, can we talk more tomorrow? About what we want. Just as I hit send, my phone vibrated with an incoming message. The name that flashed was one I hadn't seen in years, the name of my mother, the one I had lost touch with after everything unraveled. My heart raced as I opened it, revealing a simple but heart-stopping question, can we meet? I've missed you. My head spun as I realized that this could be another fissure in my already crumbling world. Was I ready to confront more of my past? The ground beneath me felt unsteady yet again, and now, with Ella's intentions looming large and my mother reappearing, I feared that the path I thought I was carving for Oliver and me was overcrowded with unresolved emotions. The next day unfolded with a palpable tension. My heart raced when Eli arrived, a tangible energy coursing through the air. Ready to settle things? He asked, a soft, knowing smile dancing on his lips. Actually, I got a message, I said hesitantly, revealing my phone in a gesture that felt vulnerable. My mom wants to meet. Ella's expression shifted, the easy smile fading as concern took its place. Are you okay with that? I don't know, I confessed, my chest tightening. It feels like the past is trying to catch up with me. And I wanted to focus on us. What if I were there? He offered, the sincerity in his tone mingling with a flash of hope. Before I could respond, Oliver came bounding into the room, oblivious to the weight of our emotional conversation. Is it time for our adventure? He asked, galloping into the room like a ball of energy, completely unbothered by the emotional entanglement surrounding us. That moment, as I watched the pure joy radiate from Oliver, I felt an unsettling clarity. What would it mean to open the door to both the weight of the past and the uncertainties of the present? I could almost hear the flutter of wings, a blend of hope and impending turmoil, a reminder that the past would not stay buried forever. Okay, let's go, I said, a decision formed out of the swirling emotions. As we walked out into a world filled with possibility, uncertainty lingered, palpable and haunting, and yet, deep down, I wondered, could I truly navigate this tumultuous journey without losing myself along the way? Would the collision of past and present ever allow me to find solace? The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the park where we decided to spend the day. Oliver sprinted ahead, his laughter bouncing off the trees like a melody, while Eli and I walked a few paces behind, the silence between us thickening with unspoken words. I could feel a storm brewing inside me, the tension palpable as thoughts tangled in my mind. Could I truly integrate the separate threads of my past and present, used to living in the silence of absence? As we settled on a bench, I took a moment to breathe, my heart a frenetic drum as I observed Eli. The gentle curve of his smile held so much promise, yet the ghost of our past loomed heavy between us. I stole glances at Oliver, who was gleefully trying to catch a butterfly, and whispered a quick prayer that he wouldn't sense the unease surrounding us. Are you sure about meeting your mother? Eli finally broke the silence, his voice soft yet firm. You know how complicated things have been. The question hung in the air, begging for a complete answer, a piercing reminder of the uncertainties I struggled to navigate. I don't know, Eli. I thought I had closed that chapter. But now, it feels like a puzzle missing pieces, and I don't know if I'm ready to confront it all. His brow furrowed in concern, yet I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. You don't have to do it alone. I'll be here, whatever you decide that I end that moment. A warmth spread through my chest, but it was interwoven with the sharp prick of anxiety. Did I want him beside me as I traversed the murky waters of my past? The thought of navigating that emotional landscape with Eli seemed both comforting and terrifying that I forced a smile, grateful yet wary. Thank you. The afternoon slid by as we watched Oliver chase after more elusive butterflies, accompanied by an innocence that made my heart ache. It should have been simple. Just the three of us, a family in its own right, joyfully basking in the sun. But every time I looked at Eli, my heart whispered his name like an unanswered question. Was I prepared for what he could bring back into my life? The light began to shift, casting a golden hue across the park, signaling the end of our day. We made our way back to the car, Oliver's energy unwavering as he sung made-up songs, buoyed by the day's adventures. Once we were home, I faced the moment I had been dreading. I sat at our cluttered kitchen table, the phone in front of me like a ticking time bomb. My heart raced as I pressed the call button, remembering the fraught history wrapped up in the name I had once held dear. Hello. My mother's voice was tentative, a mixture of warmth and wariness. It was strange how a voice could carry years of hurt and longing in a single syllable. The connection was surreal, a ghostly reminder of the past that designed my life's landscape. Hi, it's me, I murmured, the words falling heavy into the air. About our meeting, I think I'm ready, thank you for giving me a chance, she replied, her voice laden with emotions I couldn't decipher. Can we meet at the cafe by the park? Sure. As I hung up the phone, a shiver of vulnerability coursed through me. I wasn't sure if I felt relief or dread, but a sense of inevitability settled like a fog around me. Everything was changing, yet it felt as though I had stood still. The next morning, I sat staring at myself in the mirror, the uncertainties of life reflected back at me. Minutes passed, stretched too thin as I contemplated all I stood to gain, and all I risked losing. Eli entering the room jolted me from my reveries. You okay? He asked, concern etched across his features. Just thinking about the meeting, I replied, my voice trembling slightly as I braced myself for his reaction. Would he understand these feelings of hesitation? Would he feel my walls, towering and forbidding, pushing him away? Remember, you're not alone in this. You've already taken such a big step opening yourself up to both Oliver and me. Just lean into it. His voice dripped with sincerity, and I dared to hope that perhaps I wasn't as lost as I thought. That I nodded, steeling my resolve. Okay. I'll do my best. The day of the meeting arrived, and as I settled into the corner booth of the familiar cafe, I was enveloped by nostalgia. The air hummed with the clinking of cups and the low murmur of conversations, each moment blending seamlessly with memories I once cherished. My eyes darted between the door and the window, every sound causing my heart to race a little faster, and then she walked in. The sight of her sent a jolt through me. My mother hadn't changed much since the last time I had seen her, yet everything about her seemed transformed through the lens of memory and longing. Her face bore the etched lines of time and sorrow, whispering volumes of unspoken apologies. Hi, she said hesitantly, searching my gaze for acknowledgement. Hi, I managed to breathe, tension saturating the air as our eyes locked in an intricate dance of emotions. As we talked, old memories unspooled like threads of a frayed tapestry, weaving between pain and hope. I shared fragmented pieces of my life, she offered glimpses into her own. For every smile, there was a shadow, for every moment of warmth, a flicker of doubt. We were two strangers trying to find common ground among the rubble of our shared past. Just as I began to feel a glimmer of connection, a jarring text notification erupted from my phone, shattering the moment. It was from Eli. Something urgent has come up. Can you meet me right away? Panic latched onto my heart, suddenly drawing my attention away from the woman across from me. I have to go, I stammered, the heat of the moment draining from my cheeks. The stunned silence hung heavily between us. My mother's eyes reflected a mixture of hurt and understanding, and as I stood to leave, I realized I was vacating a room filled with so much potential for understanding and healing. Can we continue this later? I asked, desperate for the chance to bridge this gap I had resented for so long. Of course, she replied, her voice cracking under the weight of emotions that felt insurmountable. I bolted out of the cafe, my heart racing as I rushed to find Eli. Turning the corner, I spotted him pacing outside, a mixture of anxiety and urgency etched into his expression. "What's wrong?" I asked, breathless. He stuffed his phone into his pocket, his eyes avoiding mine. "It's about Oliver." The words hit me like ice water. Time suspended, and everything else blurred away. "What happened?" I breathed, a sinking dread clawing at my chest. As Eli opened his mouth to respond, the look on his face transformed into a pained expression. Something deep, something that gave me a hint that the news was far worse than I could have ever anticipated. "Oliver needs us," he finally said, and the world spiraled from beneath my feet as the truth began to unfold, surging toward me like an unyielding tide of fear and uncertainty. In that moment, I realized that navigating the landscape of love, forgiveness, and family was far more complicated than I could have ever imagined, and that the chasms between past and present might swallow me whole before I could learn to stand tall on my own 2 feet. As the words sank in, my breath felt stagnant, the air around me thickening with a suffocating weight. My heart raced, its frantic rhythm matching the chaos erupting in my mind. I grasped Eli's arm tightly, desperate for clarity. "What do you mean he needs us? What happened to Oliver?" Eli's eyes locked onto mine, filled with an intensity that drew me closer despite the growing chasm of fear. "He fell at the parquet, hurt. I just got a call from his teacher. We need to go, hurt." The single word echoed ominously in my mind, amplifying every worry I harbored about our son. A rush of images flooded my thoughts, Oliver playing joyfully and carefree, his radiant smile now enveloped in an unseen shadow. "What kind of hurt?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling as uncertainty clawed at my insides. "They said it might be serious." "We need to hurry," Eli urged, pulling me towards the parking lot. Each hurried step echoed my racing heart, despair creeping in with the speed of frenzied thoughts. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all that resided on the tip of my tongue was a silence that felt unnatural. As we neared the car, the sunlight battered my face, reflecting off the windscreen like shards of glass. I turned to look at Eli, who was gripping the steering wheel with unyielding tension, his knuckles white and his jaw set. "Please, tell me he's going to be okay," I whispered, fear squeezing my throat tight, constricting the hope that struggled to sprout. "Let's just get to him," Eli replied, but underneath the stoic facade, I sensed the storm brewing within him as well. The ride to the school felt like an eternity, each second dragging in thick, heavy cycles of disbelief and dread. I kept replaying the last memory of Oliver running around the park, his laughter floating in the air like a soothing balm. The thought of that laughter being replaced with cries of pain sent fresh waves of panic coursing through my veins. We arrived to a buzzing hive of activity, parents milling around anxiously while teachers hovered protectively over their students. I could barely focus, my legs propelling me forward, seeking refuge in the familiar face of my son. When I spotted him, lying on a nearby bench, the breath knocked from my lungs. Oliver's small body was crumpled, his face pale with a mix of pain and dazed confusion. A school nurse hovered close, checking his vitals while a pair of concerned teachers hovered nearby, whispering. I felt a rush of maternal instinct surge through me, as if it ignited every protective neuron in my brain, compelling me to reach him. "Oliver!" I rushed forward, kneeling beside him, my breath shallow. "My sweet boy, what happened?" His eyes focused on me, shimmering with tears that drew my heart deeper into a chasm of fear. I fell, Mom. It hurts," he whimpered, and just like that, a crumpling weight of guilt filled my heart. I had been lost in my own turmoil. How could I not have been present enough? Eli approached slowly, allowing us our moment. Just seeing our son like this twisted something in me, anxiety clawed at the edges of my consciousness. "The doctor will be here soon, Oliver," I murmured, brushing hair away from his forehead. You're going to be okay. I promise. I was trying to convince not only him but also myself that as I spoke, I noticed movement at the edge of the crowd. A woman stepped forward, her demeanor confident yet warm. The striking contrast of her humble clothing made her presence even more poignant against the backdrop of worried parents, and I was immediately drawn to her. "Hi, I'm Miss Thompson," she introduced herself with a gentle smile. "I'm Oliver's teacher. He was quite the brave one. Well, take good care of him, I assure you." There was an air of kindness in her voice, a loving reassurance that somehow provided comfort in the chaos. As I nodded appreciatively, I noticed the way Ellis' body tensed, his eyes darted to Miss Thompson, surveying her as if searching for hidden depths beneath her seemingly kind exterior. It was as if he sensed something significant yet unspoken lay beneath the exchange. Then the urgency of the moment swept us back. An ambulance arrived, its siren echoing like an ominous reminder of the fragility of life. I felt Eli draw nearer, his presence a source of calming energy, yet I could see the apprehension etched in his gaze. Doctors and nurses flowed into the scene, and suddenly I was losing my grip on the moment, losing control. First, they ushered Miss Thompson away to gather information, then Oliver was lifted upon a stretcher, medical personnel expert and gentle as they tended to him. "Stay close," I heard Eli murmur behind me, but my focus was consumed by Oliver, who winced at their touch. "You're going to be fine, buddy," I encouraged, forcing a smile that felt foreign. "Just a little bump and some doctors to help you, right? Nothing we can't handle." Yet, my mind whirled, entwined with another fear. What if this open doorway to my past and to a renewed relationship with my mother was just another illusion, while the real test stood before me with Oliver? I had to balance both worlds in an ephemeral moment, seeking support even as my past called for resolution. Suddenly, a commotion unsettled my thoughts. Eli had caught Miss Thompson's eye as she moved to speak with him, her expression earnest. I watched, my heart heavy, wondering what secret lay behind their gaze. "Everything okay?" I called out, unable to contain my worry. But as I approached, I caught a glimmer of tension in Ellis' demeanor, compounded by an unreadable expression on Miss Thompson's face. Their conversation shifted, words exchanged like silent cotomy, presence overlooked in an unsettling moment that awoke a whirlwind of emotions. "Can we talk?" she asked Eli, her voice softened yet urgent. I hesitated, feeling the barriers of uncertainty rise between us, yet in this harried whirlwind, an instinct whispered that I needed to know. "What's going on?" I demanded, grip tightening around Oliver's hand. Both turned towards me, a shock of realization flaring in their expressions. What revelation loomed on the horizon would soon intertwine my family with threads from my past, threads I longed to break free from. The question loomed, pregnant with possibilities and a profound sense of impending change. With every pulse of worry, the world felt unbalanced, and rooted deep inside me, I sensed that whatever truths surfaced now would irrevocably redefine all I've fought to build. As chaos swirled around me, the world became a blur of sirens and whispers. My heart raced. I refused to let go of Oliver's hand, clinging tightly as if my grip alone could shield him from whatever was coming. The tension between Eli and Miss Thompson grew like a thick fog, wrapping itself around me and suffocating my ability to think. "What's happening?" I urged, desperation lacing my voice. Eli hesitated, darting a quick glance back at our son, who was being maneuvered onto a stretcher. Then he turned to Miss Thompson, his expression a tempest of confusion and worry. "We need to focus on Oliver," he replied, his voice strained. "Of course," she said quickly, but her gaze lingered on Eli with a weight that felt heavy with unspoken words. I instinctively moved closer, sensing it was my role to unveil the truth that had slipped through the cracks of our lives. As they steered the stretcher towards the waiting ambulance, I could feel the world narrowing to just Oliver. I crouched down beside him, forcing my eyes not to betray my fear. "You're going to be just fine," I whispered, gently cupping his cheek. The way he looked at me, his large eyes glistening with unshed tears, filled me with a profound pain I hadn't anticipated. "I'm scared, Mom," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "That I know, baby. But you're brave. Remember that time you climbed all the way to the top of the jungle gym?" That was pretty brave, right? I tried to muster a smile, my heart shattering a little more with every word. He nodded slowly, but beneath that small action lay his intrinsic trust in mesomething even the weight of fear couldn't erase. As the medical personnel began to lift him into the ambulance, I glanced over my shoulder once more at Eli. The conversation between him and Miss Thompson had shifted, now punctuated with expressive gestures and lower tones. Something churned within me, a mixture of jealousy and concern, urging me to understand what was being discussed. I wrestled with the desire to pull Eli away, but I couldn't force myself to abandon my son. "Mom, can you come with me?" Oliver implored as they strapped him down. Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded fervently, determined to remain by his side. "I won't let go, I promise," I reaffirmed, my voice breaking slightly. "That I am right here," I whispered as I climbed into the ambulance, the sterile scent and white walls too bright and uncompromising. The doors closed with a soft thud behind me, isolating us in this moment where the world outside fell silent. As the ambulance lurched into motion, I reached for Oliver's tiny hand, his fingers trembling beneath my grip. I wanted to absorb every ounce of comfort I could provide. "We'll be at the hospital soon, and they're going to make you better, okay? Just like the doctors in the cartoons," I added, knowing it wasn't enough, but not knowing how to conjure more. But lurking just on the edge of this moment was the fear of what Eli was confronting, the revelation he didn't want to share, potentially involving Miss Thompson. Intuitively, I felt a part of me yank at the remnants of my past, reminding me of all the things I wanted to bury for good. As the medics worked to assess Oliver, I caught a glimpse of Eli through the window of the ambulance, standing near the entrance, engaged in what appeared to be a serious discussion with Miss Thompson. Their body language suggested that what she had to say was important, much more than a mere update about the day's incident. A sudden thought shot through my mind like a bullet. What if this was more than just Oliver's injury? What if he was the catalyst for an unearthing of truths that would shatter the fragile peace we'd built? "What are they talking about?" I asked a medic who was checking Oliver's vitals, but he simply smiled gently, keeping things professional, oblivious to the emotional storm brewing inside me. Minutes felt like hours as we arrived at the hospital. The bustling nature of the emergency room engulfed us in a whirlwind of activity. I couldn't shake the feeling that Eli was harboring something heavy, something that could alter the course of our family. The crew quickly maneuvered Oliver out on the stretcher, wheeling him away while I was left to trail behind, feeling like a ghost in a bustling world. Each tick of the clock was an echo of uncertainty resonating in my chest. Eli caught up at the front desk, urgency etched in every line of his face as he spoke to a nurse. "Come on, buddy," I encouraged Oliver, but inwardly, my heart felt knotted at the growing chasm between Eli and me. It solidified when I noticed Ella's cheeks flush as he leaned closer to the nurse, compelling her to listen. "Can I talk to someone about a certain history with a family member?" Eli asked, his voice laced with urgency that left me trembling. Desperation clawed at my throat. "History? What history? Who could possibly weigh in on family matters at this moment?" After being ushered into a private waiting area, whispers filled the air as I kept turning back to identify any flicker of a clue about what was happening. Eli stepped outside, leaving me alone with my thoughts, and there, for the first time, I felt the profound distance growing. The shadows of our past felt as real as the white hospital walls enclosing me. With a heavy sigh, I pulled out my phone, considering calling my mother, an act that felt monumental against the weight of secrecy that cloaked our family. But just as I began dialing, Eli re-entered, a mix of relief and anxiety coating his features. "Did you find out anything? Is Oliver okay?" I shot out in a rush, my heart pounding like a drum. Eli shook his head slightly, a painful crease forming between his brows. "Let's just hope for the best." Just then, a doctor walked in, his demeanor serious. My pulse quickened at the sight of him. "How is Oliver?" I asked, unable to mask the tremor in my voice, but then Eli's phone buzzed in his pocket, radiating an energy I couldn't ignore. He pulled it out, his face paling as he read the message. A frown crossed his features, and he turned slightly away as if absorbing personal, shattering news. "Eli?" I ventured, sensing that whatever he'd read was revolutionary. But before he could answer, Oliver groaned, and all thoughts of Eli and Miss Thompson hurriedly fled as I rushed to my son's side. The doctor looked in May's direction, his eyes flickering from me to Eli, as if gauging the emotional landscape that would lead to a storm threatening to erupt. Mrs. Hall, I think we need to discuss your son's injury further, and Mom. Oliver's small voice, faint and strained, brought my focus back to him, the panic rising once more. As the doctor continued speaking, I felt my world convulsing. I had entered a realm of complications, a web of secrets neatly woven around the truth that, perhaps unwittingly, my son was carved into. With the thunder of uncertainty crashing around us, I suddenly could see that the foundations of our family life were more fragile. This moment felt like a precipice. The futuria complicated tapestry woven with uncertainty and emotional tumult was calling for us in ways I never would have imagined, and in the chaotic whirlwind of what lay ahead, I felt an undeniable tremor of dread mixed with the anticipation of discovering long-suppressed truths that could both shatter us or save us. The waiting room was a cacophony of uncertainty. Each beep of the machines resonated through the silence, punctuating the weight of anxiety simmering in the air. I felt the walls closing in, echoing my heart's frantic rhythm. Eli stood next to me, his body tense, as if he were grappling with the gravity of something monumental that had unfolded during our time here. That I shifted in my seat, desperate for any news about Oliver. It felt like an eternity since he was wheeled away. The small fear flickering inside of me transformed into a roaring panic, igniting my need to protect him at all costs. As I turned and caught Ella's gaze, I felt the unsaid words choke the space between us. "What's wrong?" My voice trembled. Before he could keep allowing doubts to swirl between us, the shadows of his past loomed in the corners, as he leaned closer. "There's something I need to explain. About Miss Thompson." The words hung in the air, heavy with portent. "She's not just Oliver's teacher. She's connected to my family in ways I never anticipated. I didn't want to burden you with it, especially now that I could scarcely breathe as the implications loomed large." "Connected how?" My heart raced, bracing for whatever storm was about to break, every fiber in me wanting to shield Oliver's innocence from the chaos materializing. Years ago, before my decisions cost me everything, I knew her family, Eli admitted, pain etching his features. "We were close, but circumstances tore us apart." I thought she'd moved away. His voice faltered as the realization struck him like a thunderclap. "I never knew she would find her way here." "To our lives, what do you mean?" The world blurred around me, each word echoing as the room constricted with the weight of secrets. "Our lives? Do you mean you?" "I never meant to hide it from you," Eli interrupted, urgency coursing through him. "But I need to protect Oliver. If she remembers anything from our past." At that moment, out of the blue, a doctor entered the room. The change of focus interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Mrs. Hall." He addressed me, the gravity of his tone causing my stomach to drop. "We need to discuss your son's condition." "Is he okay?" "What happened?" I pressed, fear wrapping around my chest, stealing my breath. The doctor glanced toward Eli before making eye contact with me. "He's stable, but we need to observe him closely. He sustained a concussion during his fall. It's not uncommon for children, but we need to keep him for a while to monitor his recovery." Relief washed over me like a balm, but that reassurance was short-lived. I glanced at Eli, who flinched as if more than just words were hanging in the air. "May I see him?" I asked, my voice cracking as the urgency kicked in. "Of course," the doctor nodded, leading the way with a calm professionalism, yet the unspoken tension between Eli and me deepened with each step. As we approached the room, my heart raced with anticipation and dread. How could I reconcile the good news about Oliver with the anxiety spurred by Eli's revelations? The sight of Oliver in the bed, eyes fluttering, drew me close. "Mom," he whispered as I approached, his voice barely above a murmur, tinged with exhaustion and fear. I brushed the hair away from his forehead, searching for strength in his gaze. "I am here, sweetheart." I squeezed his tiny hand tightly, grounding myself in his presence. "They said you're going to be okay." Oliver's eyes darted to Eli, who lingered at the threshold, hesitant. "Are you coming in?" he asked quietly, his voice holding a mixture of vulnerability and resolve. I think I should let you two be together right now, Eli murmured, but Oliver's gaze said otherwise. The pain of decision cut deep inside me. I couldn't bear to see a division right now when we needed unity. No. I want you both here, Oliver insisted, and in that simple demand, I saw the tangled web of emotions between us, the very love that knit us together amidst the storm brewing in silence. Eli crossed the threshold and joined us at Oliver's side. Hey, champ, he said softly, crouching down. I'm right here. The three of us formed an unsteady circle. Drawn together by love laced with unresolved histories, can you read me a story? Oliver's voice was quiet, seeking comfort in the familiar amidst the chaos. It was a plea tinged with innocence, and my heart ached to provide that for him, not just now, but in every moment moving forward. I looked at Eli, who nodded slightly. Together? He asked, as if inviting me to make this moment one of healing and acceptance between all the fractures, and so, there we were, in that sterile room, one family stitched from pieces of joy and pain, love and fears. I picked up a book from the bedside table, my hand trembling as I opened it to a familiar tale. Once upon a time, I began, feeling the walls close in with intimacy, forcing the tensions of the past into the corners as we created this new beginning anchored in the present. As we read, I could feel all the barriers collapsing, the histories no longer wielding power over the love we shared. In those tender moments, the light poured in. The cracks that threatened to bury us also became pathways for healing. At the end of the story, Oliver's eyelids grew heavy, his breath softening into the cadence of sleep. I love you, he murmured, drifting off with contentment, feeling safe. As I glanced at Eli, I knew this was not just about navigating the storms of life. It was about forging bonds out of brokenness, love birthed from struggle. We were stronger together, capable of ensnaring the shadows that lurked in our past, unwilling to relinquish our right to joy. Just then, a warm light illuminated the doctor's entry. He paused, looking between us, and smiled. It looks like he'll be all right. And it seems like he's surrounded by love. In that moment, the truth struck me like a roaring tide breaking the shore. The beauty of humanity lies in resilience and connection, allowing the past to inform but not define us. I turned to Eli, and for the first time amidst the entangled emotions, a sense of clarity washed over me. The road ahead was uncertain, tangled with layers of reality and history. But we would navigate it together. I leaned closer to Eli, knowing we had all to rebuild and redefine what it meant to be a family. Together, I whispered softly, the warmth of possibility wrapping around us solidly, anchoring our hearts amidst the delicate balance of joy and vulnerability. It would take time, but love was worth every moment, and I could finally see the dawn peeking over the horizon of our shared journey. And it was in that quiet yet powerful promise, enveloped in the fragile light of hope, where every syllable and every heartbeat whispered truth. The real adventure awaited us, no matter how tangled it might become. With the small tree branches swaying outside, I knew they echoed something secret, a bond that had formed beneath the weight of distance, finally stretching toward a shared sunrise. Together, we chose to embrace it all, and in that choice, we found our way home.